So one of the main works in the exhibition is a film work that you made. Was it this year?
Yes, just freshly made.
Yeah, indeed. How did you go about making the film, and what happens in the film?
Yeah, so the film kind of responded to this material from the State Library I was looking at, and I was researching the Conjuring collection there and material especially around mentalism and hypnosis. And as I was looking at it, I was also interested in changing like some of the premises of what an altered state could be, rather than someone manipulating an audience, for example, as a magician would with some of the images that I was looking at. I wanted to kind of reverse it and think of it as having more empowering effect on the person. And then so that was kind of the starting point. And I also didn't want to use the original material from the library, and I wanted to restage it and kind of reimagine the whole thing. So that was the starting point.
The performers in the film were asked to memorize certain images?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so I was working with this idea that the performers were looking at a set of images before we were doing the filming, and I asked them to choose some that they were particularly drawn to for personal reasons, and then part of the film is listening to them explaining the images that they were looking at in detail. And the other half of the film is this kind of with these questions around experiences of premonition or having like a bodily knowledge or something that was would maybe happen in a dream, or would then kind of affect, sort of almost like the image of the dream would affect something that would happen in the waking state. So it's these kinds of two ideas of images that converge in the film.
Yeah, and that's very much in line with some of the thinking around alternative ways of thinking about the world, or alternative knowledge systems that your work touches on in the exhibition, and how our perception of things is quite layered. And you can see that quite strongly in a lot of the photographic images in the show as well. Maybe tell us a little bit more about those ideas.
Yeah, I feel like the photographs in many ways, they're kind of have a similar technique to the film. It's just another way of working with layered material and expectations around what you're seeing, and sort of trying to draw out invisible aspects of things that are not easily perceived, or that kind of are maybe more perceived on a let's say emotional or corporal register. So that's sort of one thing I'm trying to do with the photographic works. There's almost there's this sort of consumption of the visual world on the one hand, and then this belief and desire around making sense of things. And at the same time, it's sort of trying to get you to see beyond what you're looking at. That makes sense.
Yeah, I was really interested in this idea that your work pushes towards something that's not visible, yet you're trying to represent it, obviously, through
that's the which you can't really do, but
art. But it's fascinating, and I love this idea that, maybe we're all looking at the same thing, but every one of us will see it in a different way. And that's something that magicians kind of exploit, I suppose, when they're, through sleights of hand. It's the expectation that you might miss something, or that you might not fully understand what's happening, and that people might perceive that as being then magic, like there's no explanation for it somehow. What was your thinking around the title of the exhibition?
Yeah, so as I was describing earlier, when I was looking at a lot of the material, which as a disclaimer is kind of set in the 50s and 60s, so there's very strong gender roles around, like the magician and his assistant typically, or like the audience he manipulates. So I wanted to kind of break away from these sort of gender roles and stereotypes, and then in fact kind of reverse it and have this strong idea of the female prophetic body replacing this idea of the manipulative magician.
Yeah.
So, and these sort of oracles of somewhat are spaces of magic as well, but it's kind of not, but it's placing the power back within you somehow, because you're solving the riddle and you're sort of given a different logic to work with, which then affects your life, but it's sort of a more empowered and active understanding of what that could be. So I was interested in playing with that, and the title kind of reflects that a little bit.
Yeah, I love the idea of the oracle and this kind of a strong female presence that has this ability to somehow see more than you can. But then, as you say, it doesn't always play out in that way, because if you have that knowledge of the future, it kind of affects the decisions you make.